Good news, if you are preparing for your NMC OSCE, this video is essentially for you. Today, we are breaking the National Early Warning Score 2, that's NEWS2 chart, in this video, clearly, concisely, and with practical tips to help you do well in this station. So without further ado, let's get started. First off, what is NEWS2 chart? It's a tool used to dictate patient deterioration early. This tool scores 6 physiological parameters. It also helps to guide urgency of response. In your OSCE for assessment station, you are going to be using this tool. So let's walk through each of the 6 parameters and how to score them. A respiratory rate of 12 to 20 beats per minute is referred to as being normal. That gives you a score of 0. If it's less than 8 beats per minute or greater than 25, it's a red flag, and that gives you a score of 3. Next one is oxygen saturation, that is SpO2. For SpO2 score of 96% and above, is referred to as being within normal range. That gives you a score of 0. For SpO2 of 94 to 95%, that gives you a score of 1. Between 92 to 93%, that gives you a score of 2 points. If the oxygen saturation level of this patient is below 91%, that is a red flag, and it will give you a score of 3. Moving on to oxygen supplementation, that is, whether or not the patient is on oxygen. If the patient is saturating on room air, the patient is going to score 0. If the patient is on oxygen, it's going to be a score of 2. Moving on to blood pressure, which is the 4th parameter. In the United Kingdom, the systolic blood pressure is the most important. However, this does not mean you're not going to still chart the diastolic, but you're going to score based on the systolic score you're getting, right? So you're still going to include the diastolic, but your score should be based on the reading you get from your systolic. Systolic score of between 111 to 219 millimeter of mercury will give you a score of 0. It is set to be within normal range. Below 90 or above 220, it's a red flag, and that will give you a score of 3. So if you are having score that is ranging below 90 or above 220, you need to check for shock or hypertensive crisis. Next parameter is the heart rate, that is the pulse. Heart rate of between 51 and 90 beats per minute will give you a score of 0. If it is lesser than 40 beats per minute or greater than 131 beats per minute, it's a red flag. You'll get a total score of 3. Next is temperature. Temperature of a patient is said to be normal if it's between the range of 36.1 to 38.0. That will give you a score of 0. If it is less than 35 or greater than 39.1, that is critical, and it will give you a score of 3. So in your OSCE, for this level of consciousness, it is either your patient is alert or confused. If your patient is alert, it's going to score a score of 0. If the patient is confused, it's going to be a score of 2. An important point to note here is, you don't say a patient is confused if the patient is having dementia. For instance, if the case you are dealing with is Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a long-standing confusion. So, and if you see here, you will see that under the consciousness of the patient, you need to chart on this box against this parameter if the confusion as a result of acute onset. If it's a long-standing confusion, it's still going to be the patient is alert on this chart. Do not get it twisted. Don't be confused, right? So if it is in a case of subdural hematoma. It's not a long-standing. The patient is in that state probably as a result of fall. The patient fell and hit his or her head. The patient can be confused momentarily. Yeah, and after some time, the patient will be okay again. So in this case, you can chart here to be confused because it is as a result of acute onset. Do not mix these two together, right? Key things to remember include, first, total the score. Yes, know the score you are having and chart them according to their frequency of monitoring and escalate when the need arise. For score of 0, the frequency of monitoring is 12 hourly. It does not need escalation. In your OSCE, it is only in score of 0 that you will not escalate the care. Any other score other than 0 needs to be escalated. Yes, even if it is 1. Yes, please have this at the back of your mind because it is important. You don't get confused, okay? So for score of between 1 and 4, the frequency of monitoring is 4 to 6 hourly. And if it is 3 in single parameter, the frequency of monitoring is hourly because it's urgent. What do I mean if I say 3 in single parameter? If, for instance, the respiratory rate of this patient is above 25, yeah, you can see on that chart, if it is greater or equal to 25, you're going to score the patient to be having 3. So it's already, the parameter is respiration, and the patient has already gotten a 3 in that parameter. That makes it to be 3 in a single parameter. Regardless of any other thing you are going to have, this score has already override it. Okay, don't need to be confused and mix it up and say, okay, it is still between 1 and 4. If it is single parameter that the patient is scoring 3, you're going to handle it as urgent case and it needs to be monitored every hourly. If it is in other parameters, if for instance in blood pressure is 1, in respiration scoring 1, in SpO2 is 1, that is 3. It is not in single parameter but in different parameters. So in this case, the frequency of monitoring will be 4 to 6 hourly. So it's different from when the patient is scoring this in a single parameter. I hope that is clear. So if the score is 5 or more, it means it is urgent response threshold. If it is 7 and above, it means emergency response threshold. Right. For example, a patient that is having the respiratory rate of 26, that is score 3 already. For SpO2 of 94 on room air, that is score 1. Systolic blood pressure of 105, that is score 1. Heart rate of 135 beats per minute, that is score 3. For temperature reading of 36.2, that is score 0. This patient is alert and is scoring 0. So meaning the patient is having a total NEWS score of 8. This should be treated as medical emergency and the escalation is immediately. Yes. Here are some of the tips for success. Ensure you verbalize all the parameters out loud. Yes, in OSCE, you can't afford to be a silent talker. If you're an introvert in your OSCE, you need to learn to speak up. For instance, the patient is having respiratory rate of 26 and the score is 3. Say it as if you mean it. Let there be boldness. Right. Also, it is important to say it out loud, whatever the score, the total score you are coming up with. Escalate appropriately based on the score you get. Understanding the NEWS chart is not only for the purpose of the exam, but it will help you to be a safe practicing nurse, even when you get into the field. Practice saying things out loud. Watch videos like this and sign up for classes if you know you are not competent enough. It doesn't take anything from you. Yeah, sign up for classes, seek for help. Yes, the hallmark is for you to be successful in your exam, and that is it. It is not enough for you to memorize in your OSCE. I often say this. Know the why behind everything. Yes, if a patient is having a score of 3, know why that has happened. So a quick recap of everything we have said in this video. First, score each parameter. Secondly, sum up the total. Thirdly, escalate based on the result. Then lastly, on that note, stay calm and speak clearly. If this video has helped you, give it a like, drop a meaningful comment, share with your friends that are also preparing to write OSCE soon. Subscribe for more OSCE tips like this. Right, I will see you in my next one, and until then, keep practicing OSCE. Keep going, you are closer than you think. Bye.